Hey, what is up guys? Welcome back to another episode. Today we're going to be talking about what if everything actually went wrong for the Sasuke Retrieval arc. Yes, we have actually finally reached the final arc for the OG Naruto, so I hope you guys are actually excited about this. This has been quite a fun journey, and after this one we're pretty much going to be moving on to Shippuden. But before that, I might try out a few different other series as well. I want to actually bring back the In Defense of series, so hopefully you guys are looking forward to that. However, with that being said, we're just going to get started with this Sasuke Retrieval arc because I believe it might be a long video. Now, last time we actually left off with the fact that Sasuke ended up going outside the village and joining Orochimaru in this particular case. So now he's going out with the Sound 4, and Sakura unfortunately couldn't bring Sasuke back. So with that being said, the next morning Sakura wakes up, she goes and notifies Tsunade about what happens, and then Tsunade pretty much calls in the emergency team to send out to actually go and retrieve Sasuke. So in this case, the best possible option was Shikamaru. He was recently promoted as a chunin. Now, to put him out here on a first mission to go and retrieve Sasuke is definitely quite a heavy burden, so you could see that there's definitely quite a bit of pressure on Shikamaru in this case. So when things actually went wrong, it kind of makes sense because things did technically go wrong to a certain degree in the original series. And even in this particular scenario, the worst case was that we actually didn't have enough Jonin and Chunin to actually join this particular team. So Shikamaru essentially had to scrape the bottom of the barrel just to find what he could. Of course, he did manage to find the main Genin that was actually available for that particular fact. And you have to keep in mind of this as well. Those particular Genin that were on the team, Naruto, Choji, Neji, and Kiba, all of them are quite viable to actually be part of this team because, to be honest, all of them were in the Chunin exams, so you have to keep in mind that they are somewhat close to a Chunin level of some sort. They could have potentially been promoted to a Chunin, so even though they are still Genin technically, they are still quite suited towards actually coming to this battle. Of course, it would be better if we actually had more experienced shinobi in this particular case. However, you kind of had to work with what you could, and in this particular case it coincides with the fact that everything kind of went wrong and you had to take the weakest of characters out there. It could actually be worse. What if none of these particular Genin could actually go? I'm pretty sure Naruto could have easily went. However, it could have been worse where they had to actually scrap for maybe Tenten or Ino, and that would have definitely been an awful situation. Those two would have definitely died in the actual battle itself. So with that being said, Shikamaru quickly forms a team. They pretty much gather up all these Genin. Sakura unfortunately doesn't join in this particular situation because Shikamaru was already in a rush, so he couldn't actually fit her into his actual plans. So you could see that Shikamaru was definitely being a little bit picky here, so it would have been quite interesting to see that, you know, with Ino there would actually help out because you would actually have the full Ino Shikacho combo. But with that being said, I think that with them being split up later on, it would cause a problem. So with that being said, Shikamaru probably wouldn't want to bring Ino along. Same thing applies for Tenten, for the fact that maybe her abilities might not be best suited in this particular kind of mission. However, with that being said, you do have the main team actually going out, and we do our things as usual. At the very beginning, it could easily go wrong because from right off the bat, we already have the fact that they could actually set up all these traps, the Sound 4 in particular, and with that, the Sasuke Retrieval team could have easily fallen for all of these traps, particularly with Naruto being the most naive out of all of them to easily fall into these traps, and Shikamaru had to even save Naruto at one particular instance as well. So if they weren't actually keeping a careful eye out there, they easily could have been delayed in this case, meaning they wouldn't make it to Sasuke in time, and in the worst case scenario, they would have even been caught in a really bad trap to the point where they actually ended up dying or being seriously injured. So that would have been awful. And the obvious worst case scenario is the Sound 4 actually manages to bring Sasuke over to Orochimaru in time for Orochimaru to actually do the transference ritual, and that would actually be quite awful because with the transference ritual in this particular case, Sasuke is weak. He can't actually go up against Orochimaru. Orochimaru can easily take over Sasuke, and with that, Orochimaru has access to the Sharingan, he would have his full powers again, technically to a certain degree. He could easily just take one of the Reaper masks from the Uzumaki shrine, and as a result he would be able to bring back his arms anyway, and then wreak havoc onto the leaves. So it would have definitely been quite awful in that particular scenario. But that would also accelerate the Akatsuki's plan in this particular scenario, because now that they know that Orochimaru has actually become more powerful, it does potentially change up their plans to a certain degree. And without Sasuke being the reincarnation of Indra in this case, he also wouldn't be there to actually take on Kaguya. Of course, in this worst case scenario, Kishimoto could have easily changed it to the fact that maybe someone else could have easily been the reincarnation of Indra instead, so that might have worked in a different situation. However, even then, Sasuke is considered very special in this situation, and I'm not going to change the story as it gets along. We are trying to put it in the worst case scenario, and to lose Sasuke, we would lose a lot of critical moments later on down the series. Because without Sasuke, Deidara might still be alive, Itachi would probably be dead, of course through sickness and not properly by being killed by an Uchiha, so that would definitely tarnish the name of the Uchiha quite a bit, as the fact that they actually got killed off by a rogue ninja and they technically weren't avenged, and that would actually spell out the end of the Uchiha clan. It's hard to argue whether or not a Sasuke infested Orochimaru would actually beat Itachi, but I'm not too sure about that. Itachi does have a lot of tricks up his sleeve. And of course, Sasuke was also quite crucial to actually killing Danzo later on in the series as well, and also helping in defeating Kabuto, who was very big at the time during the war, and then eventually down the line, he also was crucial for sealing out Kaguya and bringing back everyone from the Infinite Tsukuyomi. So you can clearly see how important Sasuke was to the actual story itself. Now of course, let's rewind a bit back to the point where they're going through all these traps. Let's say they were able to actually avoid all these traps and they finally reached the Sound 4. So in this particular case, Jirobo is the one that actually captures them in his Boulder Dome Jutsu, and as a result the remaining Sound 4 go off. Jirobo could technically absorb all their chakra. In that case, the whole team actually gets defeated right then and there, and that would be even worse for the fact that you would actually just lose all of the main genin in that particular case, with Shikamaru being the only Chunin, and then Sasuke would potentially actually make it all the way to Orochimaru, making it really awful. Because now in this particular situation you won't have Shikamaru, so in this case no one's really going to be there to defeat Hidan. He will have to be defeated in a different way, and you also won't have Naruto as well, who is the main character in the series, so obviously he's going to be very crucial to the plot itself throughout the entire story, and without him it would definitely be quite a problem. And you guys can't make that argument that a main character can't die, because main characters can definitely die. If Naruto was to actually go the JoJo's route, it is very much so possible that Naruto could have died and been replaced with a different main character instead. So now let's actually go back again and say they actually managed to get out of this instance, and Choji stayed behind to fight Jirobo, letting the remaining Sasuke Retrieval team actually move on ahead. In this situation, we do know that Choji technically supposedly died in this particular battle, and we all actually thought so until the end later on where he was able to actually survive. However, in the worst case scenario, he would actually die in this battle. Even though he managed to kill off Jirobo, he might die, but worst case scenario, he might be killed off by Jirobo before that fact, and Jirobo might be able to pursue the actual Sasuke Retrieval team, which would have also made it quite bad. I would also like to quickly go back just a bit to the point where the Sound 4 actually encounter Raido and Genma, and both of them were already exhausted, so in that particular fight it was a possibility that they could have killed off Genma and Raido in that situation as well. Of course, you need to consider the fact that Genma and Raido were both Jonin, very elite level Jonin as well, who actually were former bodyguards of the 4th Hokage, so you can't actually take away their credit for the fact that they're strong. But of course, in the worst case scenario, I'm just going to say that they could have easily died in that particular scenario as well. Now let's actually return to the fact that Choji is now dead and Jirobo might be pursuing them. In that case, it would require another one of the Sasuke Retrieval team members to actually take down Jirobo. I could easily see someone like Neji actually dealing with Jirobo, for the fact that Neji's Gentle Fist is technically just an all-round powerful ability that could deal with pretty much any member of the Sound 4. And I think in this case, if they were to fight as a team, they might be able to defeat Jirobo. But again, in the worst case scenario, Jirobo might be able to handle all of them on his own. But now let's pick things up back to the normal part where Jirobo is dead, Choji is supposedly dead, and now we actually catch up to the Sound 4 again. In this case, Neji actually stops Kidomaru. Now in this case, Kidomaru also manages to do quite a bit as well and stall everyone, or potentially actually capture and kill off everyone as well in the worst case scenario. But if we're looking at the non-worst case scenario, then of course you have the battle between Neji and Kidomaru, and in this case, again, it was supposedly Neji's death in this particular situation, which would have been awful. And there was a potential that Kidomaru might have survived as well had Neji not actually got close up to him. So with the worst case scenario in mind, Neji could have died and Kidomaru could have chased off the rest of the Sasuke Retrieval team, killing them off, so that would have also been awful as well. At this point, you guys could clearly see that there are definitely many portions or points in the series itself where you could see that the Sasuke Retrieval team could have easily been beat off in this particular situation. It would have looked really bad on the actual Sasuke Retrieval team. But in the worst case scenario, it is possible that all of them could have just died to any member of the Sound 4. So now we actually move on with the remaining 3 members of the team actually pursuing Tayuya and Sakon. But in this case, you could see that they were actually split up, so Sakon managed to actually be split off with Kiba. In this situation, I don't really see too much of a worst case scenario. I would have still pictured everything going the same way. Because as a team battle, I do think that the actual Sasuke Retrieval team would definitely be able to handle them. Of course, Kimimaru was going to arrive later on, so that would have definitely been awful. But at the same time, Lee was also on his way here as well, with him actually being a bit more on the stronger side of things, so that would have definitely been quite a contributing factor, and Lee would also be quite closer in this particular proximity as well, so that would have definitely been quite fantastic. And we would technically continue off with that battle again, where it's with the remaining members of the Sound 4 plus Kimimaru and going up against the Sand Ninja. But of course, we go up to the regular thing again where Shikamaru is about to die from Tayuya and we have Sakon about to kill off Kiba. In those situations, it's very much so possible for them to all die if the Sand Ninja never actually arrived in time. Not to mention, Kiba was already bleeding out in that fight as well, so he could have easily died too. And in the worst case scenario, it definitely could have happened. However, what I will say at this particular point in time is that if we consider both Lee and Kimimaru's fight as well, Lee could have also died in that situation had Gaara not arrived in time. Now of course, at one point in time, Sasuke does eventually awaken from his actual sleep or his supposed fake death. So in that particular scenario where Sasuke was originally meant to be put to this fake death state, it would actually be quite a poor situation in the fact that in the worst case scenario, Sasuke could have also died in that situation as well, had the Sound 4 not actually sealed him up properly. So in that case, it would have ended both badly for the good guys and the bad guys, because in this case, the Leaf Village would have failed to bring back Sasuke, but at the same time it's kind of good in the sense that at least Orochimaru now won't have access to Sasuke's body, so that would definitely be quite a crucial factor. However, the worst case scenario is Orochimaru might switch his target to someone else in the Leaf Village, which could be quite problematic, and seeing that he might see the potential of Naruto's growth, it might be possible that Naruto might be the new target for Orochimaru. So the story could have easily panned out in such a way where both the Akatsuki and Orochimaru are now going after Naruto, and that would definitely make the journey or Naruto's life a lot more difficult. Of course, now that we actually look at it, once the Sound Ninja actually properly arrive in these particular situations, it took them no problem to actually deal with the actual Sound 4. Now of course, Tayuya and Sakon were going to die. I couldn't actually see it in any way where they would actually win against Kankuro or Tamari. Kankuro and Tamari had the best matchups. However, for Gaara's case, it might have actually turned out bad as well. Kimimaru was about to kill off Gaara had he not been sick and died. And in that worst case scenario, Gaara would be dead and we wouldn't have Kazekage, which could also be quite bad as well, because would it actually cause the One Tails to actually emerge again? That would actually be quite a problem, wouldn't it? But of course, I'm sure you guys are already wondering here, you're all excited for this, but we're moving on now to the main and final fight where we actually have Naruto and Sasuke. Plenty of things could have definitely gone wrong. There were many situations where I genuinely thought that Naruto might have died in this situation. Of course, there were two particular instances where Naruto could have actually died there. However, because of the Nine Tails interference, he didn't die. And I don't think the Nine Tails would actually let Naruto die, so I'm sure that he would step in if it was actually necessary. But you all have to keep in mind the fact that Sasuke technically did win in this particular battle, and as a result, he did technically leave the village. So would you consider that the worst case scenario? Well, actually no. In that situation, Sasuke could have actually killed off Naruto when he actually passed out. And in that case, Sasuke would actually unlock the Mangekyo Sharingan, and that would definitely benefit Orochimaru quite a bit, for the fact that now in this case, Orochimaru has something even more powerful to go for. But it also would mean that with the Mangekyo Sharingan, Sasuke would be significantly stronger and he would take down Orochimaru a lot sooner as well. But the problem does actually open up that Sasuke might actually turn blind sooner in this particular situation, so that could definitely pose quite a problem. And it would actually make it quite a curious thing as to whether Sasuke could actually go up against Itachi if Sasuke doesn't actually know anything about the weaknesses or the deficits of the Mangekyo Sharingan itself. But that pretty much wraps it up for this entire arc here. This was definitely a really fun one as well, allowing us to open up many different situations. But if I missed anything, definitely let me know in the comments down below. I'd like to see what your ideas could actually go into as well. What would happen if we actually were to encounter the worst case scenario? Also, if you like this video, drop a like and also share it. It really helps this channel. And of course, don't forget to subscribe for more videos just like this. But with that being said, I hope you all have a fantastic day. This is Enigma, signing out.